Welcome to Still Growing in Grace. I'm Mike Zanker. Join me and other amazing guests as we explore and discover better, hope-filled perspectives on biblical texts and difficult themes. Prepare to expand your understanding of God's love and amazing grace. Growing in Grace Ministries Canada and Hope Fellowship, as well as Eastside Church, invite you to enjoy today's program as we dig deeper into what it means to be still growing in grace. All right, good morning and welcome to Still Growing in Grace. I'm live here on Wednesday morning, and I'm going to sip my coffee because I haven't had enough yet. I used to call this Grounds and Grace, Coffee Grounds and Grace, and we cover topics. Today is episode 221, which is pretty cool, actually. But the last couple of weeks, we've been going through a topic on hell, trying to find a better hope-filled perspective. And today's topic, so the last two were introduction, but today we're going to get into, well, does hell exist? And you might be quick to say, of course it doesn't. Or somebody will say, of course it does. Well, listen to this conversation, because then what is its purpose? What's it look like? If it is, or what? Well, maybe it's different than we've been told. This is a great conversation, so I think you're going to enjoy this. Make sure you comment and tell me where you're watching from when you watch these. Don't forget to watch this on the Grace Awakening Network, which is on live tonight. So this episode will run tonight. Usually it's the other way around, but this is when I do my program, and so you're getting it first here. I love it. But all previous episodes are available. You can see the links below. Support this program if you would. If you value this, would you consider making a donation or figure out how to set up a monthly $5 a month, $10 a month? It's not much, but man, it matters to us. So let's get rolling into this. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. So here we go. All right, welcome to Still Growing in Grace. We are going to continue this discussion on hell, actually, and I'm going to right away zoom it over to Bill because we're doing shorter sessions. We got a lot more to fit in, and I'm just going to let you run with it. Here we go, Bill.
Yeah, so we kind of have already done a couple talks on this, and one of the teasers I left at the last one we did is something that I think is semi-known by people who have any depth of Bible reading whatsoever. If you've ever read any of the gospel accounts, this should not be a surprise. And yet I think it's a complete 180 on the attitude that many people have inside of institutional Christianity or evangelical institutional Christianity. And that is the question of, let's just, for the sake of our conversation, say that some variation of hell exists. And I think most of us believe that that is true, that there is some sort of refining experience of, there is a place of torment, as I would use the word, but torment not in a torture way, not in a punitive or punishment way, but in a restorative way. There is an experience that is very likely to happen to some people, based upon factors that they have associated with their earthly mortal lives.
Which changes the tone of those who just say hell's not in the Bible, it doesn't exist. And
that's right.
Really ticks off people who need to process it with mercy and grace.
And understand it from an angle. And I think that some people they over jump the gun and saying there is no such thing as a place that might not be the most pleasant of experiences initially. I'm not one to go that it's going to be paradise for everybody right on the onset. I'm just not quite there. I think there are elements that we have to have therapy for, and therapy is not always easy. Like if you hurt yourself, you may have to go through stretching and exercises and stuff that doesn't necessarily feel good. We may have to go through surgeries and stuff, metaphorically speaking. But the question I want to ask is, when Jesus talks, because he's the one I want to most specifically listen to, who does Jesus pinpoint are the people most likely to have a hellacious experience in the afterlife? And it's not, in my experience, who the church kind of indicates are going to have religious experience in it. It's actually the very opposite people that are going to experience some version of torment. It's not the people that are sinners. And yet in the evangelical church, it's the unsaved, it's the, reprobates, it's the trespassers, it's the prostitutes, it's the, immoral. Those are the people that are always associated with hell, right?
Mhm.
That's not who Jesus says is most vulnerable or most likely to be in this place. In fact, the people he says are the rich, the clean, the people who would be associated with the Bible study teachers of their day, the most understood religious teachers of law.
Mhm.
Those are the people that Jesus most specifically went after and said, you're the ones who are twice the son of hell.
Wow. See,
That
it
kind of
does say
flips
hell.
a script, doesn't it? It does. Or Hades, or, it flips a narrative that the people most vulnerable are sometimes the one who are so pious and so self-righteous that they can't lay down their humility and experience grace. And I think that there's something to explore there in this hell conversation that isn't about the good place and the bad place. It's about what are we getting therapy from? What are we getting remediation for? So I'll leave it there. Richard, I don't know what you want to say on that. You got some other kind of twists to this conversation, I know.
Well, I've always thought that Scrooge's The Christmas Story was always a great example of what a walkabout. I don't know if y'all have heard the term walkabout. I know we've talked about it before, but generally it's an Australian term where a young boy goes on a walkabout to become a man, and it's a cosmic journey, and they go out in the wilderness, and who knows what happens, but mystical things happen, and they come back, and they're into manhood. But I love that term walkabout. That when we die, when our souls pass on, instead if we don't want to say die, when our souls pass on, we enter into a walkabout with the Lord. He has more, I like to say, elbow room, all right, because there's no hindrance of physical body. And elbow, E-L, elbow, because L is one of the words for the Lord. So anyway, he's got elbow room to take our souls on a Scrooge-like journey of redemption, to where he takes us back to our past, to our early past. He takes us back to those events, those pivotal events that may have led us to have a hardened heart, the issues that we've never dealt with, maybe even issues of our family, maybe those who came before us. There's no limit to where his walkabout will take us. And there's no time to it either. It's timeless, it's limitless, but he takes us on a journey. And Scrooge got to the point where he looked back when he hardened his heart, and he lost the love, when he lost his first love, and when he started becoming greedy. And then he had this deep anguish and cathartic, scene where he sees his grave, he sees the abyss, which would look like to him, E.T., the eternal ECT, with nothing good there happening. That's what it appeared to him. And yet he wakes up out of the grave, and he's alive, and it's Christmas morning, and he's got every chance in the world to go help those. I mean, he saw the boy dying, in Christmas future. And then he goes and he obviously goes to take care of the Tiny Tim, so he's totally changed. He a cathartic transformation, which is really what all of us need. And seriously, it's not just those who have been, so rebellious to God that they don't even want to know him. It's us who partially know him. It can be the hard parts of us. I think we're each going to go on a walkabout. And it's not like it's either this or this.
So,
but I would grant.
Give me a sec.
Go ahead.
I want you to compare that to This Was Your Life, because they're two different things.
Yeah.
The chick track. Okay.
Right. Well, This Was Your Life part of it might be that that might come afterward, to where he shows you the good things where you were, where you were formed in his image, and remind you of the good things in your life, but also to your pain triggers, your your sore spots, your blind spots. That's really what we're really talking about is blind spots.
Right.
Some people have nothing but blind spots.
But the This Was Your Life track is built on shame. Everybody in the world's watching you on a TV screen, all the horrible things you've done.
Oh, yeah.
I think what you're sharing, this is a personal one-on-one to purge and reveal with nobody else watching, because shame's associated with other people watching sometimes. So
yes, that's good. Yeah.
Right?
I thought you meant that in the sense of this is your life. We're going to rejoice in your memories and rejoice in the good things in your life together.
No, I'm thinking of that really bad guilt trip track, and it's like it's not that.
And one of the things I think that metaphor.
I thought you were saying a woman's movie. I didn't catch the chick track thing.
Oh my goodness! You know now, right? Please tell me you know what I was talking about. Oh, that was bad. That was really good though.
Well, and in the same sense of that metaphor, and I do agree, there are elements of it that Scrooge is wrestling, right? He's in fear. He's having to go through some emotional issues. I mean, in dark places. It's not only a happy experience in every element of that story. And I think that's what most of us would consider the hell-like portions of that experience, but they're necessary to get him to the place at the end, which is a feast. It's a party, right? And that's what Jesus describes as the conclusion of what we're trying to attempt to get through too. He doesn't always, in a parable, give the final revelation of the parable, I don't think, sometimes he leaves parables kind of hanging for people to process. And when you're reading something about Jesus and he's talking about these feasts and the people who are cast to the outer darkness, right? There's weeping and gnashing of teeth, right? Again, we associate this with this concept of hell a lot of times. These are people who have refused by their own willingness in that limited capacity. I think that's key in that to be outside the party. But if you look at these parables, almost exclusively, everybody's always invited in. They, by their own attitudes, are being put in timeout. Like they're being said, you go out there, and when you're ready to come in and accept that the people here weren't who you expected to be here, and you're willing to come and feast and celebrate without an attitude, we're going to welcome you in. But until then, we're going to drag your butt outside because you're a party pooper, and you can wait until you get your attitude corrected, right? That's the theme that we see over and over inside of Jesus. And he uses hyperbolic, very culturally rigorous language.
Culturally. Because gnashing of teeth culturally does not mean what we think it means.
Correct. It means you're
angry.
Right. I mean, you're
not in pain. It's got nothing to do with
you're
pain.
You're standing out the door going, I can't believe he's hugging all those people. They don't deserve to be in there. Which is exactly the point of Jesus' parable.
Mm-hmm.
It's not what we were told.
The people we don't expect are the ones that frustrate and possibly upset the people who think they deserve. And this is what it's all about. It's not about deservingness. It's about the heart of the Father who desires us.
Well, and there's a type in the Old Testament of this, that might help some people. Jonah, when he was swallowed by the fish, and I just looking at it allegorically, he says, "I was in the pit of Sheol forever. I am in the pit of Sheol forever." Yet we know it was only 3 days. It wasn't forever, nor was he actually. I mean, he was in a place that eventually spit him out when he came to his senses. So whatever hell. I could understand why somebody might think hell was eternal, like Scrooge, when you're looking at it, and when you see the gravity, maybe of what the pain that we've not dealt with, and the pain that we've caused others, and the pain that others have caused us. I could see how that's a heavy thing to bear, and our reactive reflex would think that this is a permanent hell, and it does seem like forever. Just bearing the weight. The cathartic responsibility of these things can seem hellish, But at the other end of it, the newness comes in the morning, freshness comes in the morning. And the other side of it is all this stuff is purged away from us, which is the purgation, of it is so beautiful. And the tears, I don't know about y'all, when I was in Toronto, and when the Lord spoke to me in that vision and took me back to my memories, I wailed, and I wept. And it didn't feel good in the moment, but right afterwards it felt good.
Yeah.
And I think anyone from Hitler to Mussolini to Stalin to all these guys, that the Lord is so skillful, which is something I'd like to talk about later. But I mean, the Lord is so skillful. He knows He's the great physician. He knows exactly what we need. And now that we're not hindered by these physical bodies and by each other's bodies, He takes us on our own private walkabout, which was your thing, Mike. It's intimately private walkabout with the Lord, where He is showing us. And we may suspect things. We may not trust Him in the walkabout. We may fear Him in the walkabout. But as we get to know, as we go through the Scrooge transformation, then we're brought out into the light, and all these dark things drop off of us. And so, I mean, I think it's both thrilling, exciting, awe-inspiring, all at the same time. But the very fact that we have blind spots, we're still going to be fearful about it on some level. It's just human to be that way. But that fear's got to go. And so I think it's incredible. I think it's going to be the most incredible thing. And it's fire, because it says in Corinthians, everyone goes through the fire in the postmortem. And the good hay and silver, the gold, bronze, and silver, it comes through, just shining. But then the wood, hay, and stubble is burned away, and the person suffers loss, but they themselves are saved, yet it's by fire. So it's the same thing. I don't think it's we're just dealing with images here, but I don't think I think we all go through the same thing, but it may appear differently to us because of the constituent elements that we've allowed attached to our psyche and all.
Yeah.
So,
Randy, jump in.
I would like to sort of tag team here with something Bill said when you talked about the gnashing of teeth. In gnashing of teeth, I used to always think of it as an image of somebody in severe pain, but a guy named Edward Fudge wrote a book called
Made chocolate, didn't he?
Yeah. The all-consuming fire or something like that. It was a great book, but he talked about that concept of the gnashing of teeth. And he said and he pointed to some Old Testament passages where you see guys who are gnashing, they're described as gnashing their teeth because they're pushing back. It's holding someone out at arm's length, and they're fiery, they're furious. They're experiencing a painful experience. It's them pushing back.
Resisting.
Right. The idea of gnashing of teeth is resistance.
And weeping, same thing, right?
Yeah. So I think about First Peter chapter 3, verse 19. First Peter is where it describes Jesus, and he dies, and it says his spirit goes down and he preaches to the spirits in prison. And the word preach is the word evangelize. Jesus is trying to lure, he's trying to woo these. Now, the spirits are not angels. It describes them as people. Later on, it describes them as people that have, they're dead, they've been disobedient, they're in prison, and it describes Jesus seeking to get them out of prison. Okay, so it's them that's holding him at arm's length. It's not even, it almost is like, it's not like I've been sent into this chamber or this place where I'm going to experience something. It's more like, no, I'm in the presence of someone who wants to love me, but in my vision, my understanding, I don't like this guy, so I'm resisting him. And I see that very much. I see that's what hell is. God is a consuming fire, the scripture says. And I wonder how much of the experience, that of course fire is a metaphor, but the experience of this hellish experience is being in the presence of God, and he is trying to lure you and woo you and evangelize you, and you're just refusing him.
So he's trying to draw you into rest, right? To live from a place of rest. So you're So you're technically
Really?
resisting
Yeah.
arrest.
Did you guys see the Batman movie with Christian Bale?
I may have, I
Yeah.
don't remember.
Well, I've used this as an example before, but it had a villain called the Scarecrow. And he is a famous Batman villain.
Yep.
But
Yep.
Scarecrow would spray gas
Yep.
into people, and it made them fearful and hallucinogenically fearful. So that when somebody came trying to help them, it would look like they were trying to kill them. Because he was delusional. The fear was contorting what was going on. So I think that's, Randy, that fits right in with what you're saying. Jesus is there reaching his arms around these people, but it looks contorted to them because of their perception, because of their sin masks, because of their, blinding themselves to the light of God over their life. So how does God overcome that? Well, he's a pretty good physician.
Yeah.
And I think about too, this chemotherapy, like cosmic chemotherapy. Chemotherapy is painful, and it weakens, it weakens you in the short term, but then it sort of prunes it back, so that you can be healthy again. So, I mean, he's the great physician. So the way I look at it is it's a medical clinic for the hallucinogenically insane. That's ultimately what hell is. It's for the delusionally, sinfully insane. But it's curative and it's rehabilitative, and God is there to rehabilitate us into goodness. And and it may seem like eternal, it may seem like it's forever, it may seem like there's no escape, but that's just part of our delusion and how we misperceive God. And he's going to correct it. He's going to patiently overcome it with good. And that ends up being, if we just trust the process. What is it? I don't know who says that. It may be Purcell. Parcells. I don't want to quote Parcells though, because I don't like him. but trust the process. On the thing, and we can trust that process, that it's a good process. And we may not know all the ins and outs of it. And the more specific we get, all we can do is conjecture about it.
Well, I think
we're all
that's
doing it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the keys, and not to say that any of the four of us or Fred who might join has it figured out. I think that's the beauty of this conversation we have, is we're keeping very loose grips on this thing, right? Mm-hmm. And yet I think that goes back to the very first point, is if you're watching this and you've been raised with some form of dogmatism around these things, I think the ability to let those maybe not completely go, but at least be willing to have a conversation is the first step that Jesus is trying to break through when he's pointing to the people who were dogmatic in his day.
Yes.
Who were going, those are unclean, those are clean, you're in, you're out.
Yes.
Ironically, the twist of the whole narrative that Jesus comes and he really does metaphorically and literally flip the tables on are who we as humans have perceived based on external factors to be the ones God has loved and the one God's have rejected. And I think if we can just start by flipping that paradigm, the rest of the house crumbles.
That's good. Bill, Mike was talking earlier, and real quick, I didn't mean Bill Parcells. I love Bill Parcells. It's Belichick.
I knew you meant.
Oh,
I know what you meant. I didn't realize you said the wrong. I knew exactly what you meant. Yeah.
Yeah. But I lost my other thought. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think that we start there. We've been taught for so long. There's insiders and outsiders, and I think Jesus saying that, I'm going to leave the 99 for the one, and when I go after that one, they may be the rebellious one that you all see as being a black sheep, and it doesn't matter how mad they are, how much they kick, how much they scream, how much they gnash their teeth. I'm going to pick them up on my shoulder as they're screaming. At first, I'm going to run them down, and they're probably going to run further as I start to run them down. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to make sure I grab that one, and I'm going to drag them back, kicking and screaming, because I'm a good shepherd. And eventually, they're going to figure that out as we go back closer and closer to where they are meant to be.
Wow. Can I ask a rabbit trail question? This was not part of the plan, but I'm wondering if you guys have been exposed to purgatory concepts and how this walkabout could be something like what purgatory may have meant originally. Maybe the distortion of what purgatory has been taught and misused and abused by the church plays into this, because I know my Baptist upbringing and evangelical upbringing, we write it all off as, oh, it's all heresy. There's zero connection.
Hell or not. Yeah.
Right. So it's all or nothing. And yet I'm wondering, I'm asking because I don't know, but I've been exposed to enough little micro moments of truth that there's got to be some strands of truth in that original teaching. Then it got real distorted.
Yep.
Were you guys exposed to any of this? I'm just curious.
The word purgatory, it came, the root word meant purge, so P-U-R-G, and so it very much it reflects this idea of what the things that we're talking about, this a redemptive look at the hellish experience. So yeah, I think I've got a close friend of mine who's a Catholic, and we post on Facebook to each other, and we've had this talk about the connection to purgatory and the things that we're talking about.
Okay.
Well, and the other thing on purgatory though is that the Eastern Church's view of a purgation, they might not even have used that word, but in terms of just that hell being therapeutic, predated the doctrine of purgatory, the Catholic doctrine. And that doctrine is not, it's not full patristic universalism. That not everyone does escape purgatory, and there's different qualifications for it. And then ultimately they charge money, for it to be able to go through it. I mean, it's
definitely perverted, but the roots came from a unified Catholic church, and Catholic not being Roman Catholicism, but universal church that did have a underpinning belief that all things shall be restored.
Right. And so the doctrine of purgatory, the Catholic doctrine, is not, it's an offshoot of this, but this was much more open, much more expansive, much more universal, much more unconditional,
I agree.
And then like everything else, religion is like you said, Bill, the people that are the most, in danger of hellfire are those who are preaching things like selling. That's what Luther, one of his whole thing was selling indulgences.
Yep.
All right, Bill, wrap this up. We're gonna get Bill to wrap it up.
Come back for more, because we're still only cracking the surface. Yeah, and there's more. We're still cracking the surface of this. I think next time we're gonna crack into more of the specifics around hell. So
Richard has some gems for us.
Yeah,
so looking forward to the next one. All right, thank you, everyone. We are going to end this now, and I think you'll enjoy what's coming next. All right, here we go. How do I bring this to a close? All righty, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. That was really a good one. I enjoyed that. And as Bill said, the conversation next time is going to be on reframing our understanding. I think that's going to be a really good one. So we'll talk about perspectives on hell and how we can reframe our understanding of that. The next one after that, we're going to deal in definitions. Then we're going to get into the sheep and the goats, the early church beliefs, separation and illusion, all that stuff. I tell you, there's a lot of tentacles attached to hell that we may have in our minds that we're not aware of, which is the point of this series, is to poke and prod at unknown or under the surface beliefs that have been put into us that we assume are connected, or maybe, anyway, we're pulling those assumptions out. And I hope these conversations are really helpful. I want to share a quote with you that I just came across on Brad Jerzek's page, and here it is. Hell and purgatory are visual representations or dramatizations of the pain that will be real if we haven't learned to take up the cross and let go before our death. We learn it in this life or at our death. I thought, okay, that's perfect for this morning, because they're going to be having this Open Table Conference in like 2 days. So go to Open Table Conference on Facebook, and you might still be able to register for the online version of it. But I tell you, it's really good. So join us next time, or watch tonight on the Grace Awakening Network. Links are all below, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, have a great week. Join me next time on Still Growing in Grace. Enjoy previous episodes by downloading our podcast at growingingrace.ca. If this show's been an encouragement to you, consider making a donation today. For our Canadian link, visit growingingrace.ca, and for our USA link, visit eschurch.com. Your donation will help us continue spreading really good news. Thank you again for tuning in to Still Growing in Grace.